Hello, grinders, and welcome once again to the first episode of 2025, which is going to be our third episode on the grind part. My name is Olabisi Akande. I am a software engineer. I'm also naturally a teacher. I would say I'm a philosopher in my own right. I like to think about things and like to talk with my friends. And I have one of my very good friends here today. Her name is Florence Okosun. She's a princess from the Kingdom of Benin. So Florence is also a software engineer, just like me, but this is not just a space for software engineers. We just talk about life generally, the challenges of grinders, because like I always say, most podcasts are often about like the celebrities, but not all of the majority of us are not going to be celebrities. And we really can be inspired by the stories of each one or the experiences of each one. So today we're just talking about how to have a great year. So it's not a technical topic, but it can also be technical in a way. So
Mm.
I'll let Florence make an introduction of herself. Florence, you have the floor.
Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to 2025. The host already said my name is Florence. I'm also a software engineer. And when he first reached out to me about being featured on this podcast and what the topic is, the first thing I said was, do I really have the answers to that? So I'm hoping we'll find out together if, we have the answers to that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we don't answers to things. I mean, some answers we figure out along the way. But my first question would be this: have you ever had a great year?
Well, I am going to try to stand on the part of, to try to be positive, at the same time not denying what the reality is. We all know life is not a bed of roses. Life can be hard, it can be challenging. However, we've all experienced good times. It's just that the bad moments overshadow us so much we tend to not remember the good times. So to answer that question, yes, I have experienced a couple of good years. Like, if you bring all the good moments together, I'm sure it can form a number of years, like a couple of years. So, yes, I have experienced the good years.
Nice. Yeah, also, before we go ahead, I would also like to like say the reason why we pick a year. I mean, is even talking about a year even something very important, because we have different calendars in the world, right? And the popular calendar we use is, in my opinion, I believe that no calendar is, so calendars is not, okay, let me just say, no calendar is universal. Calendars are just some calendars are more popular than other calendars. But I'm not going into the debate of, okay, what calendar, because we have a lot of calendars around the world. I could remember when I spoke to some friends from Ethiopia. I think that was last year. And they told me, oh, they were still in 20, no, that was 2 years ago, not last year. And they told me they were still in 2017 in Ethiopia. And we cracked the joke like, hey, 2020 is ahead. You guys should never go there. We have been there. We knew it wasn't good. So you guys should just keep when you get there. So there are different calendars. But I believe the reasons why, like, we have like this yearly calendar of a thing, or monthly or weekly or daily, is simply to box our life. And like we have a box of how we do things. Just imagine we don't have words like yesterday or tomorrow. It's really hard to make plans. It's really hard to talk about things. But when we have like these things and we have like a year as a box. And for me, I sometimes see it like a year is like a chapter in our life. So like you have like a book of your life and you have like this chapter.
Correct.
Irrespective of the calendar you use, you still have a year. And a year is just a box of time, 365 days, 12 months, 52 weeks. And just a box of time for you to like, a lot of things would happen to you, a lot of things you could achieve within that time. Okay, so I just wanted to like make that clarity, because like sometimes there are a lot of argument about like calendars and yeah. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so good. You've had a great year. Do
Mm-hmm.
you think you could still have a better year or a greater year than the ones you've already had?
Absolutely. And the reason why I said so is that for me personally, the last 5 years has been, I've experienced a lot of growth, not just in my career, but also in my personal life. Like, there are things I understand from a different perspective now than I used to understand them like many years ago. So, armed with that knowledge and that kind of new way of seeing things, I strongly believe that I could have better years ahead. This year would be a better year for me based on all the things I've learned, the growth I've experienced in the past 5 years. I'll get to details of that later on if time permits, but to answer the question, yes.
Okay, you said 5 years ago, like you think you had great moments, like in the last 5 years. Why 5 years ago specifically? Why did you not mention 10 years ago? What? Why 5 years ago? I mean, if I remember, 5 years ago, COVID began, right? So why 5 years ago?
Okay, so this is personal to me. I don't know if it applies to everyone, but maybe it does. 5 years ago was when I moved from my home country, Nigeria, to Canada. Even though immediately I moved here, there was lockdown, the world went for shits and all that. But for me, traveling was helped me to see the world in a different way. Back home in Nigeria, like there's so many things I was ignorant of, and this is not me trying to speak up for every Nigerian, but the normal, regular Nigerian is an ignorant person. So moving here, maybe the environment exposed me to a different way of seeing things. Plus, I was able to, there are some experiences I had back home that you couldn't really put them in words. You just know that you're different and you're always misunderstood because nobody understood those things. But in this environment, there are words for those things, you know. There are words to describe how you feel about certain things. You know what they are. The moment you know, you call your situation by its name, then you can start addressing it. Hence the reason why I said 5 years ago. I hope that makes sense.
Okay, so you jackpot.
Yeah,
So jackpot is a
guilty as
Nigerian
charged.
term we use for people that emigrate out of the country. Okay, but I mean, you said Nigerians are ignorant. I mean, I would say Nigerians are very well educated. I mean, we often pride ourselves on, going to school, having degrees. And I also believe like there are some statistics that says that Nigerians are one of the biggest minorities in the US that are well educated. So, I mean, why do you say that's not the main topic of today? I just want to like just touch it a bit. We have to go straight to the point.
Okay, so what I meant by that was we're the largest in terms of the black population, we're the most educated generally. But I said ignorance, not saying that we're not educated people. There's a difference between being enlightened, educated, and being ignorant. So we're generally not aware of what's even happening in our country, let alone other African countries, and let alone the world. Our view of the world is limited to what happens within our environment. We really don't know what's happening in other places. I am not able to think of a great example right now, but I'm hoping you understand where I'm coming from. Like the regular Nigerian doesn't even know what's happening in Kaduna or Kano or which other countries in Nigeria. We don't really know what happens in anywhere else apart from where you live. Maybe you grew up in Lagos, you only know what's happening in Ijolegba, like me. You don't really know what's happening in the northern states. You don't know what happens in the east. You have no idea that we have exotic animals like different breeds of snakes, for instance. And I'll hear a Kenyan person talking about the different breeds of snakes. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Will I say a snake and start asking it, hello, what breed are you? Like things like that.
Yeah, I think I get your point. I think most of the time, Nigerians are well educated, correct? And I think most of the time, most of our focus, especially with education, it's mostly maybe to escape poverty, to pass exams and things like that. It's not often like people have like a wider scope beyond the books you read to pass exam. That would be a full topic for other days. I hope when people come for you, you are going to be ready for this. So let's
Yeah.
so let's go to our main topic. So you said you believe you could have a greater year. What are the things? What are the barest minimum? A year, especially a year that we are just starting, it holds a lot of surprises. You don't even know. A lot of things could happen in a year, right? I could remember in 2020, many of us were like so excited for like, I mean, 2020 kind of just sound like a perfect year. And it was a year that really shocked most of the people around the world. right, came with what we never expected. So, how exactly can you really make a plan for a great year? Or maybe let me first start from this question. Let's talk now as if we are speaking in retrospective. Let's say 2025 is over. Now we're in 2026. What exactly, how would you have said, I think 2025 was great? So
You
just
mean
imagine you are looking back. Yeah.
using my life as an example?
Yeah, of course. I mean, whatever opinion or answers we have to these questions, we should realize that they are subjective. They are never objective because something great means something different to everyone. All right. Yeah. So it's definitely depends on you.
All right. So let's say we have gone through 2025. I have experienced all the good things I anticipated that I would experience and maybe more. And then we're in 2026 and I'm looking back in retrospective and saying, 2025 was a great year because of so, 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 and so. So let's make a list. Some of them might sound like vanity, but I really don't mind at this point in time if vanity is the reason why I think I am having a good time, because maybe I deserve the vanity.
I mean,
So,
vanities should never be been a problem, right? I mean, because everything is vanity. I mean, often when we talk about this a lot. I could remember clearly when the guy that owned Access Bank,
mhm,
Abat Wigwe,
yeah,
when Abat Wigwe died, and he had this very big house on the island. I think on Banana Island or so, like very, very, very beautiful house, and I saw a lot of comments on social media like, then what was the point of all that? It's just vanity upon vanity. But the point remains that many people are also going to live a very long life, and
hmm,
even their name would not be known in their street.
yeah,
So eventually, even someone who lives a less accomplished life is also a vanity. So whether you achieve something, I mean, everything is vanity. I think at this point, we're at the point where we say, choose your vanity.
exactly. Choose your vanity. I like that. Let me note it down. Choose
So choose.
your
So
vanity.
one of the ways we can live a great life in 2025, choose your vanity. Good.
Yeah.
Write it somewhere.
Okay. So, like I was saying, I think we were saying just before the recording that the year feels like it's going to be great because it looks like it's firing on all cylinders. So what I meant was that there are plans I had just toward the end of the year of 2024, and they are coming to fruition. For example, I got my very first car. I think in 2026, I'm going to look back and be happy about that decision I made, because it wasn't financially, it wasn't a bad decision. It's not something that's going to tear my pockets wide open, but again, it's something I've always wanted, and I've come to the point where I'm able to afford it. So I will look back and say, I was able to afford it. I went to get it. I have it, and I'm cool with that. What else should I look back on? Yeah, where I'm at my career at the moment. I like my job. It offers me opportunities to explore. I also I've been focusing on self development and growth, and then building my brand online. I currently have a technical blog, which I also started towards the end of 2024. I believe by the end of 2025, I would have gained a larger audience. And that's something I'm going to look back on and be happy. Um, I try to push out posts like every week, like based on new things I learned. For instance, about my journey on Go. I also talk about databases, just normal backend developer stuff,
Basically work, right?
basically work. So
Basically work. Okay. So if all those things were to happen, then we'd say 2025 was a great year.
it was great because I was finally able to get that platform up, and I have my audience, and I have users on the website, and probably leads, to get side projects and stuff. So that would be a great year. That would be something I'll call good and to make my 2025 a great year.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
You wanted to say something.
I can't think of anything right now, but if I'm able to think of something, I'll say it.
Okay. So let's assume that. I want to ask a very dark question, and you can choose to answer any way you like. I mean, it is just hypothetical, and this is not about like as having a negative imagination, right? So let's assume that none of those things happen to you. So
Wow.
let's assume you couldn't do all of that. Would you still have been able to judge the year as a great year?
Well, if I am being like, I'm sure a couple of other things would have happened in 2025. It shouldn't just be about those two things I mentioned. Other things would happen. So it's a matter of looking on the right side, or like you would say, the silver lining. There are many events that will happen in 2025. Not all good, not all bad. So it's a matter of looking at the bright side. Like, and I'm sure other good things will happen. But if those two things didn't happen, I am pretty sure other things will happen which I can see like I could definitely pick the ones that have like a light at the end of a tunnel or have a silver lining, like something you can hold on to and be optimistic for, a better future.
Okay, thank you for your answers. I mean, the reason why I asked the question, never mind that I said the question might look a bit dark, is simply because, like, maybe I believe most of our listeners are not technical persons. So, like,
Yeah.
so when you say, and already it's good I clarify that a great year is something that is very relative to everyone. So I'm looking for like an answers that like cut it out for everyone. I mean, not, I mean,
Yeah.
like some very basic things, right? But in what you said, I believe, like you said, something that is very important that cut out for everyone, which are things like having goals, having plans. I mean, you mentioned having some achievement, like material possessions make us happy, right? We could look in a year where we have like a very important milestone, a very important milestone. Those milestones could come in terms of our career, it could come in terms of our personal fulfillment. It could come in terms of like spiritual fulfillment as well. It could come in terms of family goals. It could come in terms of like maybe like how you reach out to other people and how you connect with other people, which I also believe like is one of the best way to actually have not only a great year but a great life. When you are able to have a point of connection to other people, I mean, I would say you are at the point where you see that your life is too much for you to spend on yourself.
Hmm.
I don't know. It's just the way I call it. Like you get to a point where like, I think my life is too much to spend on myself, and I have to spend my life on others. So a very good example is it could be maybe a form of charity, a form of philanthropy, a form of even writing maybe like your deepest thoughts, like putting it out there, you know.
Yeah.
And sometimes I second guess. I mean, not only me. I believe many people second guess ourselves. Like maybe it's too early for me to say things like this, but you might not be here tomorrow, so why not do it anyways? I mean,
Yeah.
we are not going to be here forever. Why not do it anyways? I mean, you are the one being interviewed here. So, but what do you think about what I said?
Yeah, I would like to like add on to what you just said, or basically just say what you just said in my own words. So, you're not guaranteed of tomorrow. You don't even know what's going to happen in the next 5 minutes or 5 seconds. It's great to plan, it's great to have a vision, it's great to have a goal, but not, I mean, if there is anything you want to go for, like you said, just go for it because you're not even sure that you're going to be here in the next 5 minutes. So, why not just go for it and
Just do
do
it.
it? Yeah.
Just do
So
it.
another way to have a great year
A great
is
year.
just do it.
Just do it. You are not guaranteed of any time, so just do it.
Hmm.
Just do it. There's something else that comes to mind. I mean, we actually talk about this. What are the things you think having those things would make you have a good year? And what are the things if you don't have them, it will still be a great year? You mentioned about like mental positioning, like or mental redirection. You redirect your thoughts to make it a
Hmm.
good year anyways. Right.
Yeah. Hmm.
So, what are the like five basic things or three basic, whatever the number is? I mean, don't let's put a number on it. The basic things, like these are the basic elements. I think if anyone should have any of these, maybe three, four, five things, irrespective of what happens within the year, it would have still been a great year. What are like the basic things, the most basic things for you?
Yeah. Okay, that's a great question. So to answer that question, I would think the number one on my list will be something called self-awareness. To come to the point where you understand your life, your what triggers you, your process what you've been through, maybe childhood trauma or whatever stage you experience some trauma. So that self-awareness is something that helps you become a better person when you start working on yourself to ensure you don't repeat certain toxic patterns. So number one on the on that list is self-awareness. You would thank yourself like a couple of years down the line for the growth you would experience from that process of healing your wounds or being able to process everything you've been through in the past couple of years, where you are at this point in time, whatever that point in time is. The second one is if you think you require some form of therapy, then just go for it. Like we said, therapy is not a bad thing. Like therapy is not something you should look anyone should look down upon as like his last resort. It has become a critical situation. No, therapy is like talking to somebody, talking to a friend. It's just that they're professionals in this field. If you do not want to seek a therapist, there are different tools. Like for me personally, I use AI as my personal therapist. And one of the things I got from talking to ChatGPT, for instance, was this thing you mentioned earlier, which is mental redirection, because our brain works in such a way that it tries to save you. So what I mean is it notices patterns from the past that looks like danger. And when it notices this thing is feels dangerous, it tries to fall back to habits that protect you. So whatever habits you've picked up, maybe self-isolation, being defensive, or whatever it is, the brain would like naturally try to fall back to that. So mental redirection is recognizing when this happens, when you're triggered, try to redirect your brain to think the other way, like look for other perspectives, because your brain can be retrained. That is a fact. Your brain can be retrained. It should just take time. So those two things, let's leave it at two. Is it two or three? I don't remember those things.
I totally understand you. Do you think those things are? I think self awareness is a very basic thing to have. I think it's basic, but I don't know if you would agree with me. I often think there are like some things more basic that without those basic things, it's really hard to have self awareness.
Okay, to expand on that.
Food.
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
Man, I know it's 5 years ago we left home, and sometimes when you talk, depending on who is speaking, someone could say like, "Okay, first world problems, second world." Like some of the points you mentioned, self awareness. Have you ever discussed with a Nigerian about self awareness before?
It's that thing I was talking about. We being pretty ignorant. Like it is, they look at you as if you have mental problem when
You
you try
understand?
to talk about those things.
Yeah, and that would bring us back to this Maslow hierarchy of needs. You know, you remember this Maslow hierarchy of needs, right? Where
Yeah.
like the most basic things.
Hmm.
Yeah, because like without those things, it's really hard for you to know when you like yourself. You really can't be self-aware if your source of feeding is something out of control.
Yeah.
Like your food. It doesn't. I mean, we also say. I mean, I believe it's a popular Nigerian lingo that whatever happens, eat first. Like whatever the situation is, first let's go and eat. When we eat, then we can move from there. So I will often think like for me, I would say a great year is a year, not only a year, a day, or a life, like three basic
Mhm.
things. When those basic things are there, I believe things like self awareness are actually like the
Pyramid.
basic
Yeah.
things. Yeah, this Abraham Maslow. Yeah, exactly. So I think things like,
Hierarchy of needs or something like
yeah,
that.
or the hierarchy of needs. So I think things like self awareness, I think those things start coming at like level 4.
Yeah,
Because
okay.
honestly,
Don't be self-aware in an empty stomach.
Eh,
Okay.
it will not even work. You can't even be self-aware when you are very hungry. You can't. So, like, the first thing, like these psychological needs, those are the
Yeah.
psychological needs. Like, those things must be provided first, or else e- every other question anyone asks you will just be like food. I mean, there are things where a very good example. I mean, part of self-awareness is like when you are speaking with someone and the person they are disrespecting you, But
Mm-hmm.
because you know you are not dependent, your survival does not depend on them, you can really like, hey, I'm not going to, and I'm fine with walking away from here.
Yeah.
But when you are hungry, you're like, it's okay, insult me. Just make sure you give me food. I don't know if you watch the latest episode of Curiosity Made Me Ask by Bayu. I
Mm.
watch this Curiosity Made Me Ask thingy. I mean, I watched several episodes, but even the last guy interviewed, I think his name is DG Big N. I don't even know the guy, but it was the first time, and like the guy really made a mess of Bayu. And after making a mess of him, and it was like, just you know what, you are just too hungry. Just send me your account. You know, like if someone insults you and say, just send me your account, you're like, no, I know my right. I'm self-aware. I won't
Send
accept
it
that.
though.
But you know, I was like, oh God, don't worry, it's okay. This is my account number. So I think self-awareness is actually very important. We can't have a great life without self-awareness, which simply shows that, I mean, the kind of life you live are the psychological needs, not a it does. I mean, if we get stuck there, we don't move. You know, we never step to the point. And like those things actually influence your self awareness.
True.
You know, having your psychological needs, your food,
Mm-hmm.
your shelter, and a very good health. Like for me, I'll pick. I believe that those things, those three things. I mean, now that's it. Like I said, these things are subjective. When I have food to eat and I have a place to put my head, whether it's mine or I'm renting it, and I think I have good health, like those three things are the basics. With those three things, it's now easier for me to now, you know, attend to other things or even aspire to other things, right? But when those three things are not there, we really can't move to, I mean, the next level on Maslow's hierarchy, which is like safety and security, health, employment, property. I mean, if you don't have food, you can't even be talking about property. I mean, whether you are paying for it bit by bit, or you know, you can't even, I mean, you mentioned something that you said, okay, you acquire your first car this year, which is like a very great thing. I mean, you don't acquire a car when you are hungry or you need a place. Well, I know that in North America, I've heard that people, I mean, it's possible for you to have a car and not have a home.
Yep.
But in
I
Nigeria,
don't
it's
have
very
a home.
weird. Yeah, in Nigeria, like no, you have a house first, but then you
Yeah.
might not have a car. So we talk about love and belonging. Then you go to self-esteem, which comes with confidence, achievement, respect of others, and the likes. Then you now go to self-actualization, which is when you start talking about morality, creativity, acceptance, experience, purpose, meaning, and inner potential, and things like that. So I think like before getting to that level, you need those basic things. So when you have them, you, I mean, that is the basis for every other thing. That's the basis. Would
Okay.
you agree with that?
I think I would. I think it depends on how we are seeing it. Self-awareness could like be an umbrella term. For instance, you talked about ensuring that you have great health. Again, I'll use myself as example. Type 2 diabetes runs deep in my family. So what we knew about it back home and what I know about it now, like way different. And that is again still due to the fact that maybe around here, the environment I'm in, there's lots of information, and then there's this culture of, doing research by yourself and the ability to ask questions and the ability to ask the right questions is a skill that you develop, and this environment like really helped me to do that. So what I'm going to with that is me being self-aware and being able to manage my own situation way better than how my folks back home handle that theirs. Is I think is it can fall under that part of saying self-awareness, like from what I eat, like how I just take care of myself. Basically, I do not use metformin or so basically I'm saying I'm not using any medications
Okay.
at all.
Okay.
I'm not
Awesome.
using it, and I am like in good health, the best shape of my life. I'm
Awesome.
not kidding you, like health wise. So I think that came from being aware of my body and how what works for me, and going for what works for me. So yeah, I don't know. It just depends.
So I think that would depend on like Yeah, it's good to be like in in an environment where you have access to a lot of researches, an environment that is less superstitious, where like an environment, yeah, I think being less superstitious is part of it, where like you don't think every medical problem is a it's either a spiritual problem or a village people problem or things like that. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I still think that one is able to get to that level. I mean, because maybe in some of these societies, your basic needs, I mean, for most people anyways, are like to a large extent, food is not the biggest thing you are spending money on, right? And now to stay on point, I would say to have a great year, it's one you need to have like the basic things that you need that let you be able to do other things, right? Like you have your needs that let you take care of your wants, right? Anyone who has that is able to can say, okay, I think I've had a great year.
Yeah.
Aside from
So
that, you should be able to, yeah, a year where you are self-aware. I mean, you shouldn't just being self-aware. I would say like one good thing about being self-aware is also that you are not just passing through time. I mean, part of your self awareness is not, you're not just, I'm not just living, right? Being aware of my existence.
correct.
I basically understand my position in the
Hmm.
universe. You understand?
Correct.
Yeah, like being because having that connection. Okay, I read a story I think yesterday. I think or the former CEO of Loom, I think the guy made like $60 million but he wrote a note and said like I don't have any purpose to live. I'm so bored, and things like that, And many people talk about it, and some said we used to think that not having money is like the biggest of problems, but we don't even know that people could have money. I mean, we've seen people who were very rich, right, and they still committed suicide.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever must have led them to that position must not have been something great. So which is why I was like, let's look at like the basic things. So whether you have the whether you have your wants, let's break it down into wants, needs, and wants. So when you have your needs, the things like you need to even be a human, first and
Yeah.
foremost, then every other thing now comes based on like your wants, right? So how exactly do we say like someone is able to have like either a great year or a great life, irrespective of their financial status? Or do you think your influences how you feel, how you feel about a year, whether it's great or not?
Yeah. I think you know the answer to that. It is true, like 100% that your financial status does affect the quality of life that you live, and in turn, like whether you have a great day, year, moment, time, or whatever. However, you know, you make your own happiness, right? I know it sounds like, but we make our own happiness. So everything starts with a plan. Sometimes your plan wouldn't go as you wanted, but it starts with a plan. If you have a job, even though it's not paying so well, how about like having a financial plan, like make your own goals, know what you're spending on, make a plan to save. If you start saving up some money, by the end of the year you would have some amount of money saved that would make the next year, maybe a little bit better, who knows. So your financial standing obviously will definitely affect the quality of life that you live. But you can still have a lot of money and have not have a happy life.
Exactly.
So
so,
it's
so
the
which
question
means
is it's complex.
yeah, exactly. It's like one of the dilemmas of life, right? I mean, it's possible to have all this material richness and you are still not fulfilled. But you said something about like making your own happiness. And sometimes the way I look at it, like I said, this is very subjective. It all depends. But one thing I think I know is like happiness is something that comes from within. Or should I say, happiness is much better when it comes from within than when
Mhm.
it comes from outside. Like
Correct.
when you're happy from the inside, not much things from outside can really spoil your mood. I often always remember something from Sadhguru. He often explains that on a day when, let's say today you received an alert of $1 million, for example, in your bank account, $1 million, and you're walking on the street, you're very happy, and someone insults you and say, You are a fool. On the day you received $1 million, someone calling you a fool randomly doesn't really make a lot of sense to you.
It doesn't.
You understand? You don't even give the person an attention. Like, what are you
Yeah.
talking about? You understand? And on the day, let's say, like, maybe the worst thing happened, and it could be maybe a loss of a beloved person, or losing one source of income, or I don't know, whatever, an unfortunate incident. Like on a day that it happens, the smallest thing, the smallest reaction from outside can really trigger you,
Correct.
right? So which means like we always should like pay attention to our internals, like pay attention, like it's kind of funny. It doesn't it might look complicated to many people, but it's like
Yeah.
this. Whenever I am good on the inside, it's easier to infect the outside with it. And when you are shitty on the inside, you just spread the shit all around.
Yeah. So
You
one
ju-
of the things I've been like trying to focus on doing is whenever I'm triggered, like maybe something like you said, an event happens and it triggers, let's say, an emotion or something. I sit with it instead of like falling back to whatever coping mechanisms I'm used to. I
Mhm.
sit with that trigger, like, and I try to like, okay, why am I feeling this way? I know why I'm feeling this way. What if I don't react this way and react another way? Or keep quiet instead of responding, or walk away instead of, yeah. So, still back to the thing of finding your own happiness from within. If I entertain this feeling that this trigger has cost me, what would it cost me down the line? To cost me my mental health or happiness or whatever. Yeah, so I think I try to sit with that and then, not. Hope
So,
you're
so, so,
someone else.
so exactly.
Yeah,
So that I would say like that's like a form of the mental redirection you mentioned, right?
yeah,
And mental redirection is not just something you wake up and have, like, oh, like I
no.
just wake up, I have it. It's something you have trained yourself about.
I've not even perfected it, so it's not
You
like I'm a
don't.
genius.
Yeah, exactly. You don't. I mean, that's what we say about the grind. I mean, why
Yeah.
we call this space. It's not like you have all the answers, but you keep doing it and you keep getting better at it. You understand that for every little situation or occasion, there are more than one way to actually look at it. And since there are more than one way to look at it, I should pick the most empowering perspective. So
Hmm.
something has happened. There are 10 ways or more than even 10 ways to look at it. I think most
Yeah.
of the time we go off when we just choose one way to
Yeah.
look at it, and like it could really like make a mess of our feelings or emotion and things like that. So that is part
Yeah.
of like going on the inside.
Yeah.
And those are the things that can influence, having a great life. Not even just a great year, but having a great life. Like
Hmm.
you being cool on the inside. You know that you are a body of energy,
Hmm.
and the kind of energy you bottle up. And one also good thing about this, having a very positive inside, is that it's something you have to keep enriching. So you have to keep enriching it with like the types of books you read, the types of people you talk to, the types of movies you watch. All those things
Correct.
goes on. Yeah, So those are like part of like this. I'll call it like the spiritual fulfillment about these things. So, and that is how it translates to how you interact with every other
Hmm.
thing that's around you. So I believe that is a key. I believe that's a key. One thing I will let you comment on it, but one other thing I wanted to mention about it. Funny enough, I actually had a question. So, like when you already have all these good things
Hmm.
inside of you that let you confront like every ugly situation that happens
Hmm.
to you. So, what if in this year you happen to lost a loved one?
uh Well, death is never a welcome. I don't want to use the word development occurrence. Like
Hmm.
as human beings, we have never been able. There's never a time in history we've been able to, deal with that with open arms and with joy. It is sad, sad, sad. So, yeah, losing a loved one will definitely dampen the joy inside you. Um, would that affect? Would that occurrence make me like say I didn't have a good
A
year at
great year.
all? It depends.
It's not funny. Okay.
Yeah, it depends, but it's definitely going to dampen. In all honesty, I think I would say I had a terrible year because I did lose a loved one years back, and I know how I struggled through that year and the years that came after that until I decided I wanted to, like, set myself free. So for me, I don't know if any other person, but for me,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
think if
sure.
I lost a loved one this year, which I hope doesn't happen, it will it will dampen the year for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually very true. I mean, those are some of the unexpected things, but these things happen. I think maybe like 2 years ago, I lost my grandpa. I think last year we lost some uncles. Of course, my grandpa was very old. It wasn't. It was painful, but I mean, it was painful, but and it's really painful. Apart from that, you are also growing older, and your turn is coming.
Yeah.
Right. Your turn is coming, right? I mean, it could happen, but it's something that I often, I mean, the way I look at it often is this like box things into two places. So there are things I control and things I don't control. So
Yeah.
for the things that I control, I can focus on them. And part of the things you control are, you talk about mental redirection, it's part of what you control. If you
Yeah.
don't cultivate that control, you don't have it.
Correct.
And nobody in the world can give it to you if you don't cultivate it. It is yours
True.
to cultivate,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's yours to cultivate. So it's very good to actually cultivate those things. And I believe one of the ways to cultivate those things is like journaling is one part of it. Like try to
Mm-hmm.
write what happens down. The more you write, especially like new experiences, when you try to note them, meditate over them, so that when it's about to happen again, now like you have like a preparation against it. So it's no longer a shock, like like something you never prepared for. And it's also good to like you prepare for these things. These things are going to happen.
Yep.
As Nigerians, we don't like talking about death. I don't believe this is a Nigerian thing anyways. I believe most humans, we all dread death, but even our
It's part
life
of life.
it's part of life. You really can't do. There is only one way to escape death. Only one way. And that way
To
to
not
escape
be
death
alive.
is never to have been born.
Yeah.
If you have never been born, then it's not a problem. But
Escape it.
you understand. You understand.
Mhm.
So you should already accept, like accept. And I'm not only focusing on death right now. It could be like I mean, maybe I'm picking death because death is one of like the most awful thing, like one of the most painful things that could happen to anyone. But like, irrespective of, whatever, dark things or sad things we do not like, we should accept that these things are part of life and they are a possibility. Yes, there are a
Mhm.
possibility we don't desire them, we don't want them, but they could happen, and when they happen, you have to deal with it. You have no choice than to deal with it. So preparing our mind for them, it's actually a very good thing. And there's also one thing that when we talk about the things you control and the things you don't control, so okay, these are the things I control, like your mental redirection, how you react to other people, how you treat people is definitely what you control. There are other things you do not control, you know, and most of the things you do not control, don't beat yourself too much about it. When these things happen, there's really nothing I can do about them.
Let it
So,
go.
exactly, just let it go. Don't,
Any loss at all, like you mentioned, death, it could even be the loss of a job, it could be the loss of a relationship, whatever, anything that involves like the unknown or another
yeah,
human being is
yeah,
out of your.
yeah, exactly. And when those things happen, you could just, like, your mental strength that you have cultivated before those things happen. They are the things that could serve as a shock absorbers for you. I mean, if you lose a job, you could get another one, right?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you lost a phone, you could buy another one, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to things like death, you can't, you know,
Cannot
like
replace.
there's no replacement for things like that. So, but the good thing about things ending like death, and it's not like we're talking about death, but so that this is not like, why are you guys talking about that? But like these are possibilities of life. I mean, when we talk about a
Yeah.
year, I mean, I have people Yeah, they lost a very loved one, and they still keep talking about it, and they kind of attach it to the year, like, oh, this year was the worst year ever. Oh, this year I will never see your type again. We all process pain differently, and there's hardly a way to, but so that we do not make these things a burden on ourselves, because you really do not control these things. We don't
Mm-hmm.
control them,
Mm-hmm.
so we could just move. So like we focus on the things we control and not much effort on like the things we don't control. Those things help us
Yeah.
to have. Then last, I also want to mention on this, like, always think of your life as a conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
I know it sounds like, but there is one book I have. Maybe I will also share like a screenshot of the book. It's called like "In Case You Get It by a Boss." I don't know whether you've
Mm-hmm.
heard of the book before.
Yeah.
In case you get it by a boss. So which means like you could go out tomorrow and you get it by a boss. So like, don't try to make some
Yeah.
things close ended. Yes, some things in our lives will always be open ended. Try to like, make it a way that, okay, we've even talked about a loss of a dear one. So what if it's not even about a dear one, but the dearest one, which is us ourselves, right? Now, always look at your life like, if my life ends this year, and
Mm-hmm.
someone is reading a book about my life, or even I'm the one reading a book about my life, would I like to the last moment really look like a conclusion in and of itself?
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, I'm reading this book, and it gets to this point, and it feels like a conclusion. Like, it feels like so like, try to like always leave what is possible. I mean, the things within your control, like, always push them towards a conclusive path. Yes, life still goes on, but like, always like, I hold no grudges. I mean, I try my best not to hold grudges.
Mm-hmm.
Not everything that happens around me is all about me, right?
Correct. Yeah.
You look at all those things, and like you always try to like make conclusions. The things you could change, I change. The things I can't change, I don't worry myself too much. So like,
Yeah.
always like having like this mental way of like saying things in a conclusion, so that when it ends, I mean, you are satisfied with. And now, this is not just because one's life is ending, but let's also look at it within the context of a year. So the year is also going to come to an end. So like, you
Yeah.
look like, okay, these are the things I'm able to bring to a logical conclusion within this
Yeah.
box of time.
Yeah.
Right. All right. What is your thought about that?
I totally agree with that perspective because, you know, even if things look like everything has gone to shit, I can't come up with a perfect example right now, but
Mm-hmm,
something
mm-hmm.
is out of your control. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
Um, there's this thing that the passage of time does. With time, you get to see it from a different perspective over a period of time. It will probably no longer look as, God's was that word, as terrible as it looked or felt when it happened years back.
True.
So what's the point of beating yourself up over it if it
Hmm.
doesn't go your way?
I mean, I believe that's part of like the mental equipment like you have for things. Like, like, this is also going to pass, right?
Yeah,
This is also going to pass. So I shouldn't let it be. It reminds me of a recent meditation I had about things. A very good example is like, you see like maybe a couple fighting, and the way they speak about each other, like, we can never conclude this, like, we can never be together. And all of a sudden, something happens that threatens the life of both of them at the same spot. And you see that the two of them are going to change their behavior towards each other. Like, yes, you're like, you are my enemy, but you can like, at this point, I think I can work with you. Let's
yeah,
let's find a way to excuse this thing that is a threat to us. I mean, it's also a
mm,
way to to think like, there is also a different way. Like, if the situation were different, it is possible for me to act differently. So why don't I act differently right now? So why wait
correct.
for that situation and not act differently?
Yeah,
It's just a thought. Yeah, and part of the mental equipment, I would just like add, it's also good to, I mean, having a great year. Maybe we have not talked about, okay, we mentioned goals. These things vary. Some goals are very big, some goals are very small. Goals are also, they also depends on the person. It's possible
yeah,
someone tells you that, hey, this your goal is too small, but it's your own goal. And you
yeah,
should like, it's like, when you are on your own lane, you are able to like it is my goal. I'm not competing with anyone. I also think that's one of the things that can let you live a good year. And actually, this is going to bring me to the influence of social media on how we
Mm-hmm.
think about our years or our days.
Mm-hmm.
Many times some of us already feel good, but because we see something else on the social media and we start doubting ourselves.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that cannot make you live a good, not even only a good year, but even a good life. Where,
Life.
yeah, everything. I remember I once discussed with someone and he said like, oh, sometimes I watch a movie I think is the greatest movie. Then I come on social media and people like it's a very shitty movie. Then I start agreeing with them. No, you shouldn't agree with them. If you already felt good about it, it's your opinion. Like I already mentioned, there are different ways of looking at one scenario. I've already taken a look at it. It's fine. I move on. I don't have to really bother myself. People will always have different opinion. All will not agree on one thing. But the most important thing I often tell, have I chosen the most empowering perspective on this thing?
Yeah.
Is this perspective empowering for me, not for everybody? Then I think I'm
Exactly.
at peace. I think I'm at peace.
So on that topic of perspectives,
Yeah.
like you already know, like by its nature, it means it's not one point of view. So even your perspective at that point in time will be different from the perspective you have, give it maybe even 5 minutes after, or a day after, or 2 weeks after.
Yeah.
So basically, whatever decision you make at that point in time, what feels like the most fulfilling, live with whatever comes with it. Like that's what you knew at that point in time. Don't beat yourself up over it if it doesn't work out. And if it works out, fine and good. But if it doesn't work out as you thought it would, that's in the past now. We move.
Exactly. That's also a very good one. I think the last thing I could add now, I mean, from my side to wrap this up, is there's also one thing I learned from like reading. I also plan to read. Like I remember a friend of mine, his nickname is the Oracle of Tado. The guy's from
Mm-hmm.
Togo. He writes a lot. He philosophizes a lot. And one thing he mentioned, he said, writing a book is like burying things, while reading a book is like excavating things.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I do often is like in a year, I try to read good books, like books that, enrich your life. And like one of
Yeah.
the most inspiring books I read in 2024 that I took a lot of things away from is this book called Ikigai, the Japanese secret to living a good life or something like that. And I picked some points from the book, and I think one of the important points I picked from the book is like happiness is something within, but there's
Mm-hmm.
across wherever, whenever people are happy, irrespective of who is happy, there is always three factors that surround the happiness. There's always three factors. Those factors doesn't have to make sense to everyone, but those factors are often three. I mean, this is subjective. It doesn't make it a
Yeah.
fact.
Yeah.
Like when you have something to do,
Mm-hmm.
something to love, something
Yeah.
or someone to love, something or someone to hope for,
Mm-hmm.
something to do, hope.
Hope is a
Yeah,
dangerous thing.
yeah. Hope is a dangerous thing, but I mean, I believe like when we are without hope, I would say hope is a beautiful thing. I mean, yes, I mean, I think we should always manage it. I mean, there are some
Yeah.
times where you are having unreasonable hope. Like it's a hope, but it's so unreasonable. So like
Yeah.
even though you want to hope, you want to like keep your hope reasonable. Like,
Mm-hmm.
keep it
Mm-hmm.
reasonable as you are thinking of a good outcome. You should also think what is the worst case scenario, which is one
Yeah.
of the things I love about being a software engineer. Like, what is the big O notation, right?
Yeah.
So, what is the big O notation of all of this? What is the big O notation of all of
Time
this?
and
So,
space complexity.
exactly. So, like, what is the worst case scenario? Like, which
Yeah.
always help you to like prepare your mind for things. So, yeah, having that in mind. So something to do, like it doesn't matter what exactly it is. Like whenever you find people happy on different spectrum, just look at those three things. Like for them, they have something to do, right? Having something to do, like let us enjoy, like especially something to do and something to love. For some people, the thing to do and the thing to love, or they are combined, right?
Yeah.
For some, so you have something you really, really love to do. You have something you really, really, you want to do it. You love to do it. And you also have a hope about it, right? You have a hope about it. It is the hope because like that's something you love or something to do. You are not just doing it for doing sake. You are doing it to change an expectation, right?
Yeah.
Whether it is a long term or a short term one, you are doing it to change an expectation, right? Then secondly, you what's it called? Secondly, you yeah something to love, right? Something to love. Like I believe you can't. I've never found anyone who is unhappy,
Mm-hmm.
and whenever they are unhappy, it's always from a pain point of something they really hate. I mean, it's not possible for you to be happy and have hatred at the same time, especially like you have a strong hatred. When you meet the people you hate, your countenance changes, right?
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
you have something to love. This could even be, you know, even in the spiritual balance. Sometimes it could be like maybe you love the leader of your faith. Yeah, when you find, sometimes when you say like, oh, like these people are very happy. Sometimes I give an example of this with like even a city, like, or you are running even a country. A city must have something they are doing for their citizen. Make sure and take this as a lesson, whether as a parent, a leader, a business leader. As a business leader, make sure that the people you are leading, one, they have something to do.
Mm-hmm.
The thing they are doing, they love it. Or they have something else they love that is like, like fueling their emotion to be able to do what they want to do. And they have hope. Without hope, we really can't do much, right? The people you are leading, if they don't have any hope in your leadership, they can never be happy, right? So happiness comes like those three things, like the three legs to something to do, something to love. So like whenever you don't find something like, okay, am I doing something? Do I love something? And what are the things I'm
I look
hoping for?
forward to.
What are the
Yeah.
things I'm looking forward to? Like whenever we have those things, it's easier to say like we are happy and we are fulfilled, irrespective how you want to interpret it. Like, I mean, like I said, it could as well be subjective.
Yeah.
You want to add something to that?
Um, Only just that the reason why I said hope can be a dangerous thing. Okay, maybe
Okay.
I didn't say it correctly. I just said hope is a dangerous thing, but it
Yeah.
can be.
It.
Um,
Yeah.
so it means sometimes it's not dangerous. So oftentimes, when we look forward to something, we feel like it should be like we expect to get that result. At least growing up, that's how it was for me. You hope that maybe you go outside to play if you've done your chores. Like your parents will tell you if you finish cleaning the house or whatever, and you go outside to play, and then something will happen to deny you from going outside to play, and you're really hurt. You're disappointed.
Yeah.
Okay,
True.
that's just a lame example, but oftentimes when we look forward to okay, let me use another example. Someone's pregnant, we already know that by nature in 9 months time you give birth, but shit happens, right? So your hope is dashed because that expectation is not met. Maybe that's another terrible example, but that's I'm trying to go to the fact that
Yeah.
hope can be a dangerous thing because you're looking at it like you expect this particular result. Maybe the way I
Expectation.
want to see it is that you hope that you have a good result, but that result can slightly look different from, what you
Yeah.
thought. So
I get the point.
allow space for it to either go, this way or like it
I
could
get the
it could
point.
expand.
I get the point. Yeah, which was why I said like hope should be reasonable as well. And maybe
Yeah.
I should say like always apply a big O notation to your hopes. Like
I hope
yes,
our audience understand what that means.
yeah, which is basically the worst case scenario. What's the worst thing that could happen? But like I mean my point basically is like people should just not stop hoping because like
Yeah.
being hopeless is like one of the worst things that could happen to anyone. So
Yeah.
yes, it's good for us to have hope, but as we are,
Yeah.
we have this hope, we have this longing, we should like be reasonable about it, and we should always prepare like the worst case could happen. And a very good example, I believe, if you ask anyone, how long do you think you are going to live for? They say like, I guess 70, I guess 80. You are speaking from a point of hope. I don't think you are going
Yeah.
to meet anyone and say like, how long do you think you are going to live for? I think I'm dying tomorrow. Like, I think I doubt you are going to meet anyone like that. So most of the times, but still, despite the fact that we have that hope of living long, we should still like try to like Be reasonable within it. Don't delay, don't procrastinate on things you should do early, just because you have the hope that you are going to live long.
Exactly.
Exactly. You really can't guarantee, but like, yeah, always as much as you are hoping, always as like, hey. And also sometimes something also with hope is that the exact thing that you hope for or you hoped for did not happen, and
Hmm.
something else could happen. And that
Yeah.
something else might not even be a bad thing. So like always learn to like welcome. It doesn't have to be like exactly the way I want it. I mean that's also one of the way to be happy. So like don't stop letting things be like if it is not exactly the way I want it. I think in psychology, psychologists call it an all or nothing mentality. Like
Yeah.
all or nothing. Like if I don't get this thing, then nothing makes sense, right? So you should
Hmm.
be able to like, okay, I was hoping I could get this, but I got this. I think this is also great. I can also make it great. Yeah, and that is one of the ways. There's no one who is happy, whoever gets everything that they really desire. But sometimes the difference in between people is often like their countenance to life, their attitude, their perspective. Like sometimes I always say like try to do your life like two things.
Hmm.
Plan, like make plans, like make plans as if you make no plan, nothing is going to happen.
True.
Like
Hmm.
make plans, but also sometimes leave things to God, leave it to universe, leave it to whatever you believe. Just
Yeah.
let
Yeah.
things happen.
Let it unfold.
You
Yeah.
understand? But like, don't do one of the two. It's like, don't do, because sometimes, like, sometimes we want to try to control all the variables around us. Like, I want to make all the plans, and things don't go the way you want, then you are sad.
Yeah.
So, like, you have to, like, be able to create a balance in between the two. You have to create a balance in between the two. You're like, okay, I'm going to plan. Sometimes people talk and like, what if you work so hard and you are not successful? Or sometimes someone says, what if you devote so much time to raise very good kids and they don't turn out to be good? But you are never going to say, like, well, these kids might not turn out good, then don't let me do anything.
That's a really good example.
You understand? And it's also the same thing to like being rich or wealthy. You don't say,
Yeah.
like, I really might not become rich, so why am I working? You still
Why?
have to work, like you still have to do things, like which means like make plans, do things as if you don't make those plans, if you don't take those steps, nothing is going to happen. It's good keep that, but
Yeah.
also keep the second one also in mind that okay, it's possible for me to try my best and things will not go exactly my way, but whatever the outcome turns out to be, I think I can still like make something good out of it. You could work for years and not become rich. Maybe
Yeah.
at the end of your life, or okay, so people don't like you talking in second person. Maybe at the end of my life, so let me talk in the first person. So maybe at the end of my life, I look at like, okay, I think maybe at 70, or maybe okay, 17 is too far, or maybe let's say 60, and like, okay, I did not end up rich. I shouldn't be sad about things, right? I don't think I should be sad like, and I worked for all these years and I did not end up rich. The important thing is like and also another good thing is like stop delaying things for the last time, which was also what I said about like trying to live conclusively within the
Conclusively.
moment. Stop waiting for like this, long time. What if I'm thinking I might be 60 and I'm not rich, but what if I don't even live up to that time? The important thing is I've made the best of the time
Hmm.
before that time. So whatever time comes, always make the best of it. So when it comes, it's fine. So always like juggling a balance between the two. Plan like if you don't plan, nothing is going to work. And
Yeah.
leave rooms for things might not exactly
Yeah.
go the way I plan it, but whatever ways it happens, I'm
Yeah.
totally fine with it. I mean, personally, I often practice that. Like sometimes I go on trips and I have no plan except just getting to my destination. Make sure I have some money in my wallet and internet on my phone, and like just let things happen. And the funny thing is, many times I've tried this, I've found that things are much more beautiful if I had made plans for them. Like sometimes, like things are just like you make no plan. So like always trying to juggle the two.
So maybe another way you can correct me or rephrase this. Another way to have a grid here is to Either be two things: be the driver of your own car of life, car being a
Mm-hmm.
car of life,
Sure.
or be the magician in your own life. One of the
True.
two. I don't know. You can
True.
rephrase that. Just be in charge.
Yeah. Basically, I think the common way people say that is like to take your destiny in your own hands.
In your own hands.
Like
Yeah.
try to take your destiny. Don't leave too much things to chance. Just like I mentioned, like plan like nothing will work without planning, and sometimes when things happen. But the important thing is you have to like, because if you don't make moves, things, whatever you get, whatever like someone said, like sometimes you don't get what you negotiate, you get what you deserve, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But like, make sure you negotiate. So like when so like be the driver, take, don't leave things to chance. Always, always be proactive. I think that is like, always be proactive, do the best for yourself. If it doesn't happen, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine. Don't live your life alone for yourself. See your life as something that is too much. Like, even if it is just 40 years, even if it is just 30 years, I think it's too much to spend on myself. I could
Yeah.
say this short story, which very short story, which is the story of the guy that, what's it called, gave the world the language for the blind, Braille. The
Braille,
guy
yeah.
that made the braille, So the guy lived up to the age of 45, I think 45 or 44. But the guy has died long ago. But up till today, the impact of what he did is still lives with us up till today. Uh, Even though, and he had a very challenging life. He got blind, I think, at the age of 5. When he was alive, there was no, we don't really have antibiotics like we have them today. So God, I think as a child, I think at the age of 3, he put in like something like a nail into his eyes, and because there was no antibiotics, the infection affected the other eye, so he lost both sides. You know, and eventually this guy died of tuberculosis. Imagine, like, when was the last time you heard anyone died of tuberculosis? So this guy died of tuberculosis at the age of 45. But even though he lived just for 45 years, like the impact of what he did for people who have the disability of seeing with their eyes still lives with us till today. I mean, right now you have ATM cards that have the Braille language on them. You can see like the Braille sign at even train stations. It has been developed upon. So which is like,
Mm-hmm.
which you always like try to, it might be short, it might be long, but like live a life of impact. Take your destiny in your hand. It's not really about having everything. Like the example I gave, he had tuberculosis, he lost his both sides, but he was still able to make impact. Like I said, see your life as something that is too big to spend on yourself. See it as something you could spend on other people. I believe this the list to having a great year or a great life is actually inexhaustive. You could have
Yeah.
like a very good one. We could just keep it
Yeah.
for there. I think we could stop it. Yeah, yeah, we could. Yeah, we could stop it there. So, I wish you a very I wish you a very great year. In this year and every years to come, I hope like the things we discussed and the lessons we shared are things that could really help someone to live a fulfilled life, whether they are rich or not. Because some people think like you only have to be rich to have a good life, but and we have seen those who were rich and like, okay, and then what? So which tells us
Yeah.
that it's not only about being rich. You talk about self-awareness, you talk about mental redirection. I believe like those things are very good things to equip us. I also remember talking about like a focus on something to do, something to love, something to hope for. Be hopeful, but be reasonable with your hope. Don't
Mm-hmm.
all make plans. Make plans like nothing will happen if you don't plan, and sometimes just leave things. Leave it, like we say, leave things to the hands of God.
Yeah.
Leave things to your creator, leave things to the universe. Because the reality still remains that you are not in charge of every variables of your life.
Yeah.
Focus
True.
on the things you can control. The things you can't control, it's
Let
okay.
it go.
Yeah. And don't live for yourself alone. Thank you very much for spending your evening with me. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope
My pleasure.
this is also able to help other grinders and we are able to have a great life and a great year as we keep grinding. All right. Talk to you
Thank you very
another
much,
time.
Sarad.
Yeah.
I
Bye.
enjoyed it.
Bye.
Yeah.